Alrighty. I'll keep up this lighting. Break it.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello. I like that. Hello.
Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday in this gloomy weather of Duluth.
Today's the presidential debate, so I think it's relative that our topic today is on taxes.
Give us one. Yeah, I think it's really.
So I think it's really relative, obviously, with the thing with Trump. And people make a big deal because he only paid $750 in taxes. Well, he's just following the tax laws that were given to him. As someone who owns a business and lots of real estate, he doesn't have to pay taxes.
Just the reality.
If he does certain things for federal taxes, it doesn't mean they're not paying any taxes. But the bigger thing here, to focus on the solution here, I think that's mentioning that. But the big thing is just the importance of just educating ourselves on taxes, because
education.
It's
Education.
Anyone that educates themselves, and I'm a rookie because there's so much to learn. But the more that I learn about this, the more it benefits me and my family and my friends and anyone. And it's not like a bad thing. Like, there are some tax laws that, of course, that we could discuss on that could be changed that would be better. That for big corporations, maybe, that I agree with some of the stuff that like Bernie Sanders talks about. But in general,
For some of the outliers.
in general, though, like, for anyone that's not a huge corporation, I think it's really fine that you follow tax laws to not have to pay in taxes if you're running a business. Like, I do think there is huge corporate tax breaks that these CEOs and businesses sometimes get that doesn't really benefit anyone except for them. So, but at the end of the day, their tax laws are there to create regulation. And it also gives incentives for businesses to act a certain way so they don't have to pay taxes. So, but it should be done in a good way. I think anyone within any system can do bad things. But if you look at tax laws, if you have extra money,
Thanks for being with us, folks.
If you have extra money, like in an account and you're a business or even a person, you can give that money to charity, and that's a write-off. Even individuals can, like donating. So understanding tax laws can be a good thing. You can be like, I have $100,000 here if you're a business and I don't want to pay taxes and lose half of that or 60% of it. I could give it to a nonprofit or create a nonprofit, and now you don't have to pay any taxes. So I think if you look at it as an opportunity to give, not only give back to your employees or your own business, but to other things, you could look at tax laws as not a horrible thing. You can look at it negatively and just look at someone who's just like selfishly doesn't want to ever have to pay taxes. But at the end of the day, like...
That's totally delusional, though. What you just said is inaccurate.
What?
When people say someone that doesn't pay taxes, there's no one that doesn't pay taxes.
I know, but what I'm saying is federal taxes is what I'm saying. I'm not talking about never not paying taxes.
Exactly.
So I guess to be clear, federal, there's a difference. But that's what I'm trying to say. When it comes to the tax laws that prevent someone from, or a business or a person from paying federal tax laws.
So I think it's fun, though, talking about it. One of my favorite things in business is once you start running a business, like when I was running my moving company, one of my favorite parts of it was looking at the numbers and being aware of the numbers and how my numbers are moving in and out and where my money's going. So when I look at remember, folks, this is not right, this is not wrong, it's our perspective. But when I look at tax code when I first got into moving, it was super interesting to me because if I'm working my tail off and I'm buying trucks and I'm paying taxes on all these things along the way, so I wasn't paying income tax, right, folks, on my individual self. But along the way, when I bought moving trucks, when I bought a $20,000 new moving truck, I paid $3,000 in state tax. And then when I bought moving blankets, when I bought moving supplies, every time I paid an employee, you have to match your employee's Medicare and Social Security payments. So you're matching these payments every time you pay an employee. So when you say that someone doesn't pay taxes in business, yes, you're technically correct because they're not paying as an individual or an entity. But along the way, that business paid taxes along the way in every sense of the way on state taxes and matching their employees' taxes. So I think it's a great topic, and I think when you look at states that don't have it, there's a reason they're flourishing. Austin, Texas flourishes for a reason. Some of these cities with no taxes, state tax, when I'm saying that, they flourish for a reason. So I think it's remarkably interesting how few people have ever really dived into tax code and understand, like, when you see Trump and they see this and this happens and everyone goes crazy over Trump's taxes, it's kind of remarkable because it's like, it's been like this, the tax code has been like this for decades and decades and decades. Businesses are incentivized and they have to pay, they create jobs, so they have to pay taxes along the way. So if I don't want to pay taxes at the end, they have all these credits and write-offs that you can use to dance around paying taxes at the end of the day, but you pay taxes all along the way. So I thought it was a big deal when I was in business. I'm like, if I'm working 80 to 100 hours a week building a business, what's the point if I'm going to be taxed 40, 50%? Like, to me, that's like, why would I even go into business ever? There's no point then. There's no incentive. Why would you go? Would any of you or Zaya, would you guys go into business if you're going to lose half of your money? Picture sacrificing everything you do, like I was doing with my moving company, sacrificing everything, living out of a moving truck. I started from living out of the back of a moving truck, and then I was living out of the office, and I was sacrificing everything to build this. And they take half of it, or 40%, or 33%, whatever it is. No, not for me. I'm not going to give 110% of my energy, my time, and my sacrifice, and my discipline, and my focus, and my commitment, and then give 40% of it or 33% of it to the U.S. government. The U.S. government collected $4 trillion last year. About $4 trillion last year, I believe. $4 trillion. I think that's enough money, folks. I think they have enough money to try and manage and make things happen. But I think it's a really big topic is the education, as you said, Zaya, education and awareness. All these people online that are commenting, they don't have an education or awareness to tax code. Because it's been like this for a long time. Long time.
Danielle, thanks for listening, Danielle. She says Trump doesn't pay taxes. That's what he's saying, Danielle, is he doesn't pay federal tax. No, let me talk, dude. I'm responding. You don't need to interrupt me. He doesn't pay federal taxes. So what that means, what my brother was explaining with tax codes, like if you own real estate, you can avoid paying federal taxes on that property. Or if you own a business, your business can avoid paying federal taxes. Now, there is legal ways and illegal ways to pay taxes. I think the issue with Trump is people think he's not sharing his taxes because they think he's been illegally avoiding taxes, not legally. But we're referring to just the fact that when there was a post on the internet about Trump paying $750 in federal taxes, and that's not necessarily illegal. If that's the case? Like I haven't looked at the situation, but we're just saying in general.
It's 100% legal. He has an accountant that's one of the best accountants in the nation.
Okay, but I'm talking. So that doesn't necessarily mean he's breaking the law. Is what we're saying is that with tax code, and we're saying federal, the difference between taxes is that if you're a business owner, you don't, like Jeff Bezos pays $1 every year. He pays himself $1. He doesn't pay any federal taxes because he's always putting that money back into his business or back into the world in some capacity, where therefore he doesn't have to pay federal taxes on that money. Of course, there's people that are illegally doing stuff tax-wise. But when it comes to
doing it legally,
there's nothing wrong with that. Then it just comes down to your opinion on if you agree with certain tax policies that have been in law for decades and decades. So that would be a different discussion if you feel like that's not morally right. But the way it's set up now, anyone that owns a business, it does give them an incentive to do certain things with their business and their money to not have to pay federal taxes, to give half of it or 60% of it to the government. So that's kind of what we touched on that. And thank you for listening and commenting, Danielle Dupree.
I think it's a topic of employee number one. The number one topic about all this with taxes and awareness and perspective and education comes to employee versus employer. And it's the awareness and perspective that I challenge you. I challenge you to give 110% of your time and your energy and go do it. Because once I did it, it changed my perspective. Once you take the action, you sacrifice, you're committed, you're courageous, you're facing fear, you're taking all this money and you're rolling it back into a business, and you're buying supplies, you're buying equipment, you're paying employees, you're matching the employees' taxes. When people say that, it kind of upsets me that because they have no clue. People have never ran a business, never had employees, never paid employees, never matched their taxes. You don't have a clue. Yes, I, along the way with my moving company, at the end of the year, didn't pay taxes. But guess what? I paid taxes the whole way. If you look at someone that has multiple business entities, Danielle, you could have 5 business entities, and they make millions of dollars, and they pay millions of dollars in payroll, and they match the Medicare, and they match the Social Security payments of that individual to the state. They are paying taxes as an entity. But as an individual now, they're keeping all of their money and their income liquid in their businesses because it keeps you flexible. It comes down to employer. As an employer, you have flexibility. You have multiple different ways that you can avoid giving the government 33% of your money or giving the government a huge chunk of your money. So why would I pay myself if I'm an entrepreneur who's not even going to be collecting Social Security and who's making my money myself? So I might as well keep the money in my business entity and operate as a business entity, developing business credit and developing business endeavors because it makes way more sense. There's less risk and there's more reward involved. So why would I take money that's being paid to my business and then withdraw it and pay it to a personal account just so I can pay more taxes? If you realize this, it's a big topic. A lot of people that say he's not paying taxes are completely delusional. As an individual, that's correct. But he has millions of dollars in payroll taxes he pays. Millions. You're talking hundreds of millions, folks, that he's paying in payroll taxes. So, like, what do you mean he doesn't pay taxes? If I have a business that's separate from me, that in
federal taxes. So this needs to be clear. Danielle just posted something again. Danielle, I can't read the article right now because we're pulling up. But
I'll pull it up.
There's nothing illegal about him not paying federal income taxes.
Nothing.
Again, if you understand tax laws, if he owns businesses, Danielle, he doesn't have to pay federal income tax if he allocates his money certain ways. For example, if I had $1 million left over, Danielle, and I put it in as a business, and I donate it to charity, or I put it all back into my business, I don't have to pay any money. If I'm not paying myself as a person, like if I had $1 million business and I wasn't paying myself a salary, I paid myself $0, I don't have to pay any federal income tax. And that's not against the law. There's nothing illegal about that. Now, some people might not agree with that tax law, but that's a different discussion. You can't say because someone's simply following the tax laws that they're a bad person. And I'm not saying I'm like a huge Trump guy either, but in this specific topic, when it comes to Trump, I do think the fact that he only paid $750 in federal income tax, there is nothing there that's illegal or bad, so to speak, unless they can prove that there's something he's doing to avoid them that's illegal. But avoiding taxes is very common in business. Again, like my brother was saying, when it comes to federal tax, again, it needs to be key here that's federal. Then that doesn't mean they're not paying any taxes at all. It means that he's avoiding federal income tax, which is very common for people that own lots of businesses that are wealthy like Donald Trump. So whether or not you support Trump in his politics, that's a separate issue. Like I can separate. We're separating that. We're not talking about Trump as a politician right now. We're simply bringing up this law because one, taxes is really tax education is really important, and we feel like it's a good reason to bring it up because of that article and that post about Trump and people freaking out because he paid $750 only. It's like, well, he didn't necessarily do anything illegal or wrong. Now you might think that tax law that following that could be wrong, but that's a different conversation. And again, you can't say that if you don't even know anything about tax laws. So it's really important that we begin to look at tax laws and educate ourselves on tax laws, and then we can come up with our own opinions on what we think tax laws should be. But as they stand, anyone that owns a business doesn't want to have to pay federal income tax. They don't want to have to give half their money away to the government if they don't have to. If they
incentivize folks.
If they can give that incentive to put that back into the economy, into their business, into a group charity of some sort. So I would like to read this whole article. I'm not going to read it live right now because it's a longer.
I checked it out briefly. I just don't think people are. I checked it out briefly, Danielle. But ultimately, the conversation is exactly what you just said. A lot of people that don't understand that as in a business, employee versus employer, there's huge advantages. The number one advantage is tax code. Number one. The number one advantage when you realize it, when you're trying to make money and develop wealth and have financial education or awareness, or have financial success or financial freedom, is overcoming the tax codes and overcoming losing 33 to 40% of your money to the U.S. government. The smart people, sorry folks, whether you want to say it's right or wrong, as my brother said, is a different conversation, but the intelligent people that are aware of the tax code, they start businesses and they avoid federal tax and they avoid taxes and they use that extra money to start investing in their business or themselves and then they
give back to the community.
Exactly. And then, well, I think running a business is giving back to the community if it's done correctly. If you're giving people higher paying jobs than other people,
that in a sense, but I actually mean like charities and community development.
I'm just saying
because I'm talking about pure community development when I say giving back. Because obviously, when you run a business, it's still
let's talk about it, because what we're talking about with the vision of a business that we're talking about, it is community development.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm saying like giving money away freely, just give it something to another entity that has a cause that you maybe don't represent. You're not trying to solve cancer or
that's the interesting
lupus
thing. When you
or whatever.
A lot of these businesses that get to the top, they actually open up their own nonprofit.
Yeah, that's fine too.
And then they start giving money, so they keep control. A big topic here is control and other things. It goes to everything.
Well, of course,
tax code connects to
you
everything.
can do whatever you want. I'm just giving you an example.
But it's about maintaining control, not giving the government your money, because the government fucks up everything they spend. The government is the worst. The most rigid bureaucratic form of operation is the U.S. government, and they're terrible with money. They're terrible with money. Terrible. $4 trillion. Where did the $4 trillion go that they collected 2 years ago? How do you have $4 trillion and this country is still a fucking mess? $4 trillion. $4 trillion. Let me see what they collected last year.
All right, but let's keep it on taxes here. So
yeah, that is taxes. It's how much it's management of money. It correlates to everything, taxes and fear. Correlates with every topic you could ever correlate and talk about.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just trying to keep it on
I just find
individuals so they can apply this to their life. Let's be solution oriented.
So let's look at people.
How can individuals or business owners? I really like to be solution oriented and not problem oriented. I think it's good to mention
the problem and be
I understand, but I don't want to sit here and spend 30 minutes just talking about the problem.
Yeah,
we've talked enough about the problem. Let's focus on the solution. And right now, the education to individuals and businesses, whoever you are, it doesn't really matter. Even an individual, this is important to learn. I've learned.
The problem is none of them will audit the. Danielle, I challenge you, Danielle. What's your audit on your taxes, Danielle? Do you even know the number you're paying? Most people don't even know the number they're paying.
Yeah, I understand. But again, let's get to the solution. So sitting down and educating ourselves on tax laws is really important because it can help us grow and learn financially on how we can better ourselves. Whether you're a person, whether you're whatever job you have or whatever business you own, I think it's really important because it's only going to benefit you and your friends and family and everyone around you. And I think it's especially really important if you want to start something to understand, even if you want to start a nonprofit. It's the same thing. Or if
you even want to comment on it online. Sorry, folks. I challenge people that comment about things that have no experience in it whatsoever. Because it's happening all over this culture. It's called cancel culture. People have no clue about anything they're talking about, and they give an opinion. It doesn't make any sense. What's your experience in tax code, Danielle? How much businesses have you ran?
It makes sense, dude. She's just like, we have a podcast because we want people to come on here and talk.
I know. And
we don't want to sit there and shoot them down.
I'm not challenging them down. I'm challenging people that comment that have no experience in business tax code, that are commenting on business tax code.
Well, that's what we're talking about. So that's why we're talking to educate her on the subject. I'm not going to sit here and it's education. That's solution oriented and bringing people together. Challenging people, I don't think is the way to do it. It's educating, not challenging them to get educated. Educate. That means you're a teacher. You're trying to be positive.
And challenging you're not people trying to educate.
You're trying to unite people. So you got to assume. You should assume anyone on here doesn't know tax laws. So you should assume that. So when they come out here and post, you should assume that already. You don't want to sit there and assume the opposite and then kind of be.
That's why we're talking. I think it's a great topic. But I just think it's remarkably interesting auditing people that talk about stuff that in America that don't have any experience on it. Like when you see it, it's so remarkable. When I was reading about it last night, all of these people commenting about this.
So like, Daniel posted something else.
Since he first started running for president 50 years ago, I'm going to say, Donald Trump has refused to show the public
like,
his tax returns.
Any idea
and now
how
we might finally know why.
Breaking news, tax bombshell. The New York Times gets its hands on President Trump's tax.
And when once you realized anything about business tax code and taxes.
So I don't know what you posted there. Again, so whether he's doing anything criminal, I don't know. And I don't want to sit here and talk about Trump the whole time. It was just a small example that I wanted to give. So we'll talk more about that later.
Well, yeah,
I appreciate you.
Move away from Trump.
I appreciate you posting, Danielle. That's a separate discussion whether he's doing anything criminal because his taxes, his documents aren't being shown. That's a separate discussion. He might not be doing anything criminal. I'm just saying in general, anyone that doesn't pay federal income taxes does not mean they're a criminal, is all I'm trying to say. I just use Trump as an example because it's relevant because of what just happened the Post recently, and it's been a big thing about him. And I don't know enough to know the facts if he is doing anything criminal. He could be, but if he's following tax laws, he's not doing anything criminal. So I don't assume we live in a country where it's innocent till proven guilty. And I'm not even sitting here and saying I'm a Trump supporter. It's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is just because someone doesn't pay federal income taxes doesn't mean they're a criminal. It doesn't mean they're doing anything wrong. They could be, but that's why knowing your tax laws is important, because as a business owner, let's bring this back into the solution, it can fuck your whole business up if you don't know tax laws, because at the end of the year, you could owe millions of dollars of money that you don't even have because you thought it was something that you didn't need to pay in on. Next thing you know, your whole business could go under. You could fuck your whole business could go under.
In a snap of a finger, it happens all the time.
Yeah, I've watched about it on different Instagram channels with business owners and people that shared experiences about how not understanding tax laws hurt them so bad where it almost killed their business because they didn't understand the importance of tax laws. And that's why it's really good to have an accountant or someone on your team or a lawyer. Like, as an individual, you always want to learn more, like my brother says, but I think it's really important of also surrounding yourself by people that are experts as well as continually growing yourself. So for me, I like to surround myself by people, if I'm trying to learn in certain areas, that know more than me, that have more experience than me. So if I'm around people that are more experts in tax laws, whether it's an accountant or a lawyer, I'm going to learn from them. They're going to help me. I'm going to grow. So for me, the awareness of, again, the humility that I don't know the answers and I need to seek the answers and find other people who are more experts and more knowledge and experience than me, again, is how I learn and how I grow and remain a student. So when you look at that mindset, it can be in anything, whether it's taxes, anything.
Yes, but it comes back directly to experience and how many times have you ran a business and paid and operated a business? Because that's where you gain the most awareness and perspective to taxes.
Again, but I agree with you. But again, to be solution-oriented and individuals is just educate yourselves on tax laws. It's very simple. Start to educate yourself. If you are in business or you run a nonprofit or you manage any money for a business, it doesn't have to even be someone who runs a business. You could be managing millions of dollars on a fund as a financial advisor. You could be the top guy at $1 million business working for you don't have to be an entrepreneur. If you're managing money in any capacity and you're working for an entrepreneur, you can help them save money, which could lead to you getting a bonus and $100,000 a year bonuses and trips and raises. Like, it's really good. If you're in any form of finances, like, this is super smart. Like, and if you're trying to grow individually financially, it's super smart too. So for me, I think this is a really important thing. I don't think it's necessarily the most fun topic, to be honest.
It's my favorite topic.
It's not something that I think of taxes and I think this is sucking.
It's my favorite topic.
I don't think it's anything that's, for me, it's like, oh, this is juicy. But I look at it as important because
it's the most important topic.
It's a very important topic. So, but for me, it's not like the sexiest thing for me when it comes to life and business and things that I'm naturally interested in.
That's remarkable.
I don't sit there.
That you are going to say the most sexiest thing isn't your money, your earned income and your hard-earned sweat equity. Most people in America are spending all their hard-earned money that they spend their time and energy to get, and they're like you just said. It's not that sexy.
It's important, no, but it's not sexy. It's not something that I.
If I'm spending all my time and energy to make
I understand,
money,
bro. I'm not you though. I'm just sharing my opinion. I don't sit here all day and obsess over taxes like it's not my fucking natural thoughts. I'm not sitting here. I'm not an accountant or lawyer. I went to school for. I don't give a fuck. Like, it's something that I need to learn because it's important. Just because it's important doesn't mean I naturally love talking about taxes. You're stupid if you don't do it because it's important, but it doesn't mean I need to love it. I learn stuff because it's important to learn. Doesn't mean I have to naturally love it. I naturally gravitate towards other things. But I also know you can't ignore something that's extremely valuable and that affects you.
So here's my key point about all taxes versus employee versus employer and my general point here. This is what in my interpretation, after running and being self-employed for the last 8 years and running a business or two and being a part and advised by successful businessmen, multiple, Sculptor and Tom Ollis and others, Kim Duffett and other people, my dad, other people, and as my brother said, accountants within the moving company. I would audit accountants. What I would do instead of paying accountants is I would call 2 to 3 to 4 and advise with them and then take their advisory. Because for me, I need to know more about my money than anyone else. So when I started the moving company, my first goal was to know a little bit about everything so I have awareness and perspective to it. I'm not just going to start a business and be like, here, take my money and take my hard-earned all my dollars and you have control and responsibility of at the end of the year whether or not I own it or not. Nope, sorry, I'm going to be a part of that. So it comes down to everything I'm talking about, awareness and perspective to where my money, my energy, my time is being devoted. If I'm devoting all my time and energy to making money, I need to then devote time and energy to how my money is being controlled and manipulated or managed. So when I started my company, I looked at after realizing all the taxes I was paying in the moving company, I started to look at the U.S. government's collection of taxes. And if you look it up, they collected $3.5 trillion approximately in 2019. And they only issued $452 billion in tax refunds. So that's $3.1 trillion. $3.1 trillion. And I was like, okay, I think they got enough. I'm this little guy moving company. I think they got enough. They got $3.1 trillion. I think that they can manage with $3.1 trillion. So if I get a budget and I have a job and I'm the boss of America or a business and they tell me I have $3.1 trillion to do my job, I think I have an obligation and duty to do that successfully. And if I can't with 3.1 trillion, I don't think I should go take the money from a small moving company in central Minnesota in Coon Rapids that's living out of his office and moving truck to build a company. That's my opinion. And then also the other thing I want to touch on is the fact that you as an individual, I would advise you to defer all of your taxes as long as possible. If you can claim exempt and you can take a payment plan on your taxes at the end of the year, I would do that. Because the more money that you have at your disposal, the more power and the more tools you have. Because the more educated you become and the more skillful you become in life, the more money you have is your number one tool. So if you can say, I'm going to claim exempt, and I'm going to start taking that money that I would have paid to the IRS and move it in towards investing into starting a business and opening a business, filing your EIN, filing with the federal government and filing with the local government and opening your business account, you can start deferring your exempt money to your business and pursuing financial freedom and happiness and pursuing whatever you want to do. But ultimately, if you're not aware and you don't care about taxes and you don't care about where your money's going and you don't think it's sexy, that's a very tragic thing because ultimately a lot of us...
You can care and not think it's sexy. I never said I didn't care.
Totally. I agree 100%.
I just don't think it's a sexy topic.
But at the end of the day,
it's not really a sexy topic in my opinion, sorry.
But at the end of the day,
it's important.
What we're talking about is financial freedom, folks. And financial freedom has a direct correlation to management and awareness and auditing of where our money is and how it's being managed and how it's being taxed. So if I'm going to spend all my time and energy, as most people do in America, because we're time poor, based on the facts of the Harvard Business Law and study and science of Harvard, they prove this. We are time poor. We spend our time and our energy trying to make money to pay our bills and liabilities and obligations financially, and then we come back and we don't care about tax code. And then we act like we know a lot about it, and then we're losing all of our money and we're time poor and we're spending all of our time trying to make money, but then we pay 33% of our money to the government, some of us even 40% if we're not aware of it, and we don't even care. And we're spending all this time and energy trying to make money. It's just a really interesting perspective. It's just really bizarre to me how many people lack awareness to it, and it's just bizarre. And I think a big part of it is fear and insecurities.
So what's the solution to that again? So the solution, in my opinion, great points, JR. I don't really have much else to add because, again, I'm not an expert in taxes. There's a lot that I still need to learn, so there's not much more I can add. I think in general, to be solution to this, again, is to educate ourselves and learn without having these preconceived ideas of what we think taxes are like. Because a lot of people don't know, and I still don't know a lot. So that's why I sit here and I listen and I observe and I learn. So there's a lot of good information out there. I'd say if you're already someone who's managing millions of dollars or thousands of dollars, whether it's running a business or being an accountant or a lawyer, or you have your hands on a lot of money every day and you're a financial advisor or a financial person, or just an individual that wants to get financial freedom, for me, my suggestion and what I continue to do is just try to learn and educate more about the tax laws and why they are set up and how that gives us incentive to give back and to grow financially. So for me, that is the solution to this, is always educating ourselves. I think Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I'll do a quick shout out to Robert Kiyosaki. I think he has some really good, simple financial principles that he talks about in his book and in life that I think anyone can follow when he talks about like assets and liabilities and the differences and how you have tax write-offs when it comes to having assets versus liabilities. I think that's probably one of the best books that I have read that anyone can read that's really simple. Before it doesn't get into super technical stuff, it gives you the basic principles of the foundation, which I think it's really important in any area of my life when we're learning anything to start off with foundation principles when you're learning how to play basketball, when I'm learning how to rap, if I'm learning how to exercise or meditate, whatever, financial education. I think it's really important to not worry about these super technical things, which we can get into, tax code 4725, but look at the basics, the simple principles. And I think for me, I would suggest anyone read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He has really good stories in there that he talks about from his experience about basic financial education that I think anyone can learn from, and it can drastically change your life. That book has changed my life. It's something that I always try to go back and reference to keep the principles in my brain because I need them to be natural, right? When I'm learning something new, it's not something that I naturally gravitate to right away. It's not a natural habit. It's not a natural way of thinking. But for me, that book has really helped me a lot and understand my relationship with money and how to leverage that. And I think taxes is right up there. So I don't have anything else to add to this topic today. Really, it's a really good topic.
I think we should lean into money management for another 5 minutes before we
go ahead. Lean into it.
I just wanted to read the definition of asset versus liability for the audience, and so you understand that the majority of us are spending all of our money on liabilities. Items such as clothes, cars, a home that I buy and live in, food, hats, socks, anything that doesn't pay me is a liability. So when you start to look at the list, I'll actually read the definition of a liability if you want me to. But when you start to look at the list of liabilities versus assets, the main forms of assets are liquid. They're income properties that pay you. So real estate that pays you. They're bonds, stocks.
Basically anything that pays you money.
Bond, stocks, or mutual
anything
funds.
that puts money in your pocket's an asset.
Yeah, so number one, rental properties, and then the other form is mutual funds, stocks and bonds, papers, and then there's stuff like oil.
Intellectual property. Anything that you come up with in your brain
business
is the most underrated one. Your imagination and creativity, intellectual property. But it's basically anything that puts money in your pocket. So that you don't have to go to work and clock in. Anything that's paying you money in your pocket is an asset. Anything that takes money from you is a liability. That's very simply put. That's all it has to be down on. And a liability can become an asset. And an asset can become a liability. So that's really key. So it's really focusing on that simple thing. That's how Robert Kiyosaki breaks down. A boat can be a liability, but it can become an asset if you turn it into a sailboat business where now you're giving. I could buy a sailboat for $10,000. The maintenance, the cost, everything. It could be a liability. But if I create an LLC and the boat's owned by Isaac's Sailboat Tours, now I give people sailboats. I can hire someone to give them sail tours throughout the year. Now I'm making money off that, and it's still my sailboat that I can use at any time. Now that becomes an asset. So anything that's a liability can become an asset. Pretty much, it depends how you use it. A car is a liability, but it can become an asset. Anything can.
Everything can, like a single family home. Like if I live in a house and I pay all the obligations or I pay all the bills.
It's a liability.
Or I buy a house and I rent it out. Now it pays me. So now I can take that money and pay my rent wherever I am. And now I'm still, and that equity is developing in that property. There's all kinds of examples. Like
that's the simplest thing, though. Is it putting money in your pocket or taking money in your pocket? That's how Robert Kiyosaki breaks it down. He has a chart. And he has a chart that he teaches 4, 5, 6-year-olds, and they understand it really easy.
Why aren't we teaching
He has a flow chart that he shows little kids, and they go, oh, okay. But we kind of, in our brain, as we become adults, think like they teach us that a house is an asset. It's not really an asset if you're paying all the bills.
Megan touched on this just now. She said it's a lifelong signing of a contract when we're not even aware of it.
Well, she said she watched something about that, and she doesn't know. She says she watched something on
Wake Up America, about 23 minutes, and this dude says, we are tricked into paying taxes by filing them the first time, essentially signing a lifelong contract when we weren't obligated to pay at all. I don't ever looked into it. Yeah, ultimately, the middle class, you guys, is another great talking point, is they're just delusional to assets and liabilities, a lot of them. They don't have any awareness. They're never auditing or inspecting or gaining awareness or perspective or education to it. And they're the ones paying the bill. You're the ones footing the bill, folks. If you're the ones going...
And there's nothing wrong with that if you want to have a house, but I think it's important to understand, like Robert Kiyosaki says, he owns a house, it's a liability. But 2 things he makes a point. His assets pay for it, and 2, it's a property that is within his means. Those are the 2 key points. He's not saying no one should buy a house, live in your own house. Like, he's saying that his assets pay. If he does get liabilities, his assets pay for it. And 2, he's not buying a house that's beyond his means. Like, if you look at a $500,000 house, like you probably have to make over $1 million a year to really afford a $500,000 house versus making $100,000 a year and it's a $500,000 house. So those are the two things that I think that he made a good point is assets pay for it, and then not only his assets pay for it, but it's within the means of his assets. So he assesses his asset money, meaning the money that his assets pay him, the same way you would look at how much money you make from a job and what kind of a house you can afford. So therefore, he's never paying his hard income money for a house, and he's not buying a house that's going to cost him 30 years to pay off. In fact, I heard him say, or someone say, where if you can't pay it off in 15 years, the house is probably the mortgage payment. If it's too much where you can't do double payments, you've got a house that you can't afford.
It's a great example.
But it's not. You want to leverage the bank though, because if you're getting a 30-year mortgage for 3% interest, that's fucking great. Use the bank. But the key is the house paying you money, or is the house taking money out of your pocket? Then it's the liability. So that's it for me for assets and liabilities.
I think it's a great point, and I think it's a great awareness to the fact that a lot of people in America are living not within their means. They're living beyond their means. And if you're living beyond your means, so it keeps you from pursuing your dreams, it's a really huge handcuffing that a lot of people don't even have awareness to. They are handcuffed with their time, their energy, and their money because they're living beyond their means and they cannot pursue their dreams. And then in return, they are hopeless, they are restless, they're irritable, and they're discontent. So if I can't pursue my dreams because I'm handcuffed by my financial situation, that is very disapproving. That is very disappointing, and that is not very happy. That is not going to lead to happiness. That's not going to lead to contentment. That's not going to lead to passion, focus, commitment, courage, and so forth, because I don't feel like I see a future if I'm not pursuing my dreams, if I'm handcuffed, if I'm...
Well, I also think a big thing here...
If I'm stagnant and I'm stuck.
And I think a bigger thing, too, that Grant Cardone talks a lot about much, and you haven't touched on this as much. I think my brother takes about the number one factor is being handcuffed. But there's a number two factor here. And the number two factor here is, outside of financial education and understanding your money, is you need a bigger target. Grant Cardone makes a really good point. He goes, you just needed more money. That's a big problem. That's a big thing.
Dream bigger. Stop dreaming little.
But there's a second thing about this. You shouldn't do that until you get financial education first, because like Robert Kiyosaki says, and this is my experience, just because you make more money, if you don't understand finances and change, you're just going to get more in debt. So for me,
exactly,
understanding that process is how I've grown and gotten a better credit score and learned about myself. And this is a process. It's not something that just happens overnight and you're done in 2 years. But two, then it helps me understand if I just need a bigger target, how do I get there? Then when I begin to make more money, I won't spend it and be in more debt and be more stressed. So it's a 2-point process, like my brother says. Understand it, understand your financial situation, and understand financial education to get yourself out of the handcuffs. And then number two, which is I think is a huge one, is just have a bigger target. I think that's one of the hugest things that Grant Cardone talks about, is the part that my brother's talking about, and then simply saying, what's my new target? And that empowers you. Understanding your money and then just saying, I can make way more. It won't take very long to get there. If you're 10xing your goal, within a year or two, you could already be tripling your income because your mindset's bigger. You're not stuck on a $40,000.
What you're saying is that I agree 100%. But the problem is, I talk about it, is dream bigger. Stop dreams are meant to be big. Stop dreaming small. Dream
That's
big.
what I just said.
I agree with you.
That's what I'm saying.
But the problem is, they're fearful. They're consumed with fear. They're never gonna have the chance because they're living their life in fear and lacking perspective and awareness to even what their dreams are. So it's a huge topic, is what's your dream and what's your target.
But again, so that's the problem. The solution to that, you're talking about the problem again. Yeah. That's the problem. The solution to that, again, is education. And we talked about this over and over. Empowerment is through education. If I don't learn and then apply that knowledge through, like we talked about yesterday, strategy, nothing changes. So again, it starts with education. This is what Robert Kiyosaki talks about. Financial education, spiritual education, that's where awareness starts. That's at the end of the day, it all starts there for me. So the solution, if you are stuck in fear is rooted for me when I don't know, right? I'm in fear when I feel like I don't know something. But if I educate myself and have a strategy, I am not in fear because I have a plan. For me, if I'm in fear, it means I have no plan. I have no idea what's going to happen. So of course fear is going to kick in for you. But if you have a plan and you have a strategy, there's always going to be a little fear. But I can tell you what, when I have a plan and a strategy and I have people around me that I trust that are on the team, there is way less fear.
You talked about this before.
Way less fear.
You talked about this before. It's control. if we control the change, we're comfortable with it. If we're not in control of the change, we're not comfortable with it.
We're fearful, yes, exactly. So here is that's a solution, though.
If I don't have control of my time, my energy, my money, I have no accountability, I have no empowerment.
Again, I know you say that all the time, but we need to talk about the solution to that.
Yeah,
what's the solution to that? The solution to that is educating yourself.
Yeah,
the solution about that is educating yourself. I think it's important that my brother talks about those things, but I think it's just as important or more that every time he says that we hammer home the solution to that right after, because I need you guys to know that that's the solution. That is the solution.
The girl steps, audit and awareness, inspection, transparency. We talk about the girl steps. It's the same thing with money. It's the same thing with everything. You audit and inspect to gain awareness and perspective. Moving forward in step 2 with replacing ego with humility and openness to work together with others and be vulnerable and authentic in your faults, your vulnerabilities, and your defects and shortcomings, leaning into your strengths and surrounding and building yourself up with people that build you up where you're weak. And then you move forward united, removing ego and working together via humility and openness and vulnerability and connection with others to take action, to develop strategy through that action, and share intellectual value freely with the world. That's the concept of everything that I talk about in the media, and that's the concept of how you would do that with everything. Just audit and inspect.
So on a micro level here with taxes, again, I'll wrap it up, is educate ourselves. I challenge to educate ourselves. I'm still a rookie in the game. I'm nowhere near an expert in finances or even taxes. But I hope that you can educate yourselves in taxes, so then maybe you have a better understanding and you can have a better idea of what your opinion is on it. And it's hard for me to have an opinion if I'm not educated, and it's hard for me not to be in fear when I don't know it. So, they say ignorance is bliss, but at the same time, that's where fear is rooted in for me. And I think the more I learn and educate and grow, I'm not as fearful because I have a plan. So thank you guys for listening today. I don't really have much else to add. Hopefully you got something out of this. I'm learning a lot about myself with taxes and finances still. And I hope you guys, thank you for tuning in, Danielle. Thank you for tuning in, Megan, and giving you guys your insight and your opinion. We value you guys watching and your opinion when you come on here. We love hearing other people's perspectives and what they say. And we're here to connect and grow and educate. So thank you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Zaya. And I just wanted to wrap it up with what the average American pays in U.S. tax, federal, state, and local. And the median income is, let me pull it up. Well, the average American the average consumer in America spends $10,489 each year in federal, state, and local income tax. That is approximately, based on the average income of $33,000, I think it said, based on the thing I read, I don't know if that's correct or not, but based on $33,000, $10,500 is approximately 33% of your income. So whether that's accurate or not, I don't know, but I do know that based on tax numbers in the previous history, that most Americans are paying 25 to 35% of their earned income in taxes. That's remarkable. So if I could somehow take that money and give it back to you and take it away from the government, and you had that extra 25 to 35% every week, every month, every year, I think that would make a huge difference for you. So if in some way or somehow, if you can gain awareness and perspective to the fact of how much you're paying in taxes, and then how you can find a way to move that tax payment to yourself, because the U.S. government is collecting over trillions of dollars. They're collecting approximately $3.1 trillion last year. I don't think they need your $10,000. If you can find a way to leverage that $10,000 and move it, invest it into yourself. This is all about investing in you and pursuing your passions for profit. And that's why we talk about all these things, so you can do what you love, find happiness, and pursue your dreams. So it's hard to do that when you're financially handcuffed. So nothing that we talk about is right or wrong, folks. It's simply our perspective, and it's valuable because my brother has amazing, valuable perspectives. He's lived a very different life and a very interesting life. He's lived these growth steps, and he's lived a life of growth, essentially, and helping others. And then I have my perspective, so we come together and we share that. And it doesn't mean it's right, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just simply us trying to bring value forward on every online platform and share it with the world. And by doing so via culture and attention online, via a podcast and social media networks. So once again, thanks. Your attention is our oxygen at Weirman Media. Trunzo like Trunzo. Thanks for your patience. Yeah.